Arise, Queens. This is the All Queens Army, where women are provided with the tools you need to overcome your fears, face your flaws, and experience breakthroughs as you develop self-esteem so strong you emanate royalty. Now, for your host and commander of the All Queens Army, Breizy Time.
Welcome to the All Queens Army podcast. This is your girl, your host, Breizy Time. I am here today with another dope episode for the Queens. Yes, honey, I am super duper excited. I feel like I'm really loud today, Queens. Let me turn my mic down. Jesus. Okay, if y'all wasn't awake yet, I guess you are awake now, okay? So I'm really excited today because it is another dope-ass motivational Monday for the queens in the queendom, and I'm super excited to be in your ears again because you are in my heart. So welcome to another episode of the All Queens Army podcast. No, Queens, I cannot sing. I'm just excited and having a great time today and hoping that you're having a great time today. And if you're not having a great time, hopefully listening to my voice, being a part of the queendom in the All Queens Army will make you feel a lot better and make you have a little bit of fun, okay? So I have such a dope-ass episode and some dope motivation to drop for you queens today. So I'm super excited to jump right in and get straight to the point. So that's what we're going to do. Now, before we get started, I am going to tell you queens to go to allqueensarmy.com. There's a couple really good, cool things going on there. One, as I promised last season at the end, that I would create an e-course for you queens to learn how to manifest what you want. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to episode, I think 37 and episode 40, where we're talking about the law of attraction and we're talking about how to manifest what you want. Then go to the e-course that's on the website, allqueensarmy.com. It is free. It's something that I wanted to do for the queens because I didn't have enough time on those two episodes to explain how to manifest what you want and to really go into detail. So I created that e-course for you queens because it was a promise I made and I wanted to make good on my promise. Okay, so that's out there. That is exciting. I want you guys to go check it out. Okay, second thing is, and I said this last week too at the premiere episode, but All Queens Army now also has a motivational blog. So along with the dope ass Motivational Monday episodes that I'm dropping for you queens, we also now have a blog for those of you who prefer to read or like to read as opposed to listening, or like to listen and read, or just need some additional motivation. So some of the blogs are kind of continuations of certain episodes where I go into a little bit more detail. Blogs drop every Thursday at 6 a.m. So it is a great morning read to get your day started. So go check it out, queens. Let me know what you think. You can always shoot me an email or write a review or something like that. Okay, now with that being said, last thing is if you have not subscribed to the All Queens Army podcast, you can do so right on the website as well. You're going to click on the subscribe link and then choose the platform of your desire. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. All right, now we've got all of that out of the way, queens. It's time for me to motivate the shit out of you. So what are we talking about today? What is today's episode all about? Today's episode is how to control your emotions. Now, I want to add a little bit more to this because what goes into your emotions are your thoughts, and I'll explain that a little later in the episode. So really, this episode is about how to control your thoughts and your emotions, okay? Not just your emotions, because your emotions are created from your thoughts. In order to even be able to control your emotions, you first must have to be able to control your thoughts in the way you think. So with that being said, let's jump right in and get to the nitty gritty, queens, and get some motivation going. All right, first thing I want to tell you, queens, is that there's this myth that people don't have control of their feelings, right? I hear a lot of women say all the time, I hear men say it too, well, you can't control how you feel. I also hear people say, well, you can't control who you love. There's so many things that people say that you can't control, when really anything that has to do with you, you can control. Now, there's a ton of shit that you can't control. I do episodes about that as well, focusing on what you can control. It's just so funny to me that that thing that you actually can control, which is your own own thoughts, your own feelings, your own emotions, and how you react are the things that people are telling you can't control, or people have now started to believe that they can't control, which is interesting because it's so funny that we spend so much time focusing on the things that we can't control, and there's nothing we can do about certain things. We have no power over them, but the very things that actually shape the way we perceive life, the way we experience life, and what we manifest into our lives are our thoughts and our emotions, and we can control them, and so many people believe that we can't. You are not a victim of your feelings. You're not a victim of your thoughts. You're not a victim of your emotions. They do not control you. Well, maybe they do, but they don't have to. If you are being controlled by your emotions, that means that you have little emotional control. Okay? I know that's like an obvious statement. It's like, okay, Bree, duh. But seriously, like, you don't have control over your emotions, but I just need you queens to understand that that is a choice, okay? You've probably been told, you've probably been taught, you've probably grown up your whole life thinking that how you feel and your emotions are just something that you're experiencing. And I'm here to tell you, yes, you do experience them, but you can control them. Now, why is it that you want to control your emotions? Like, what's the benefit of that? Why is that even something that we're talking about? Well, let me explain. If you don't have control over your emotions, it actually will make you an emotionally unstable person. Now, people hear about emotionally unstable all the time, and then people associate that with being crazy. If you're unstable in your emotions, yeah, you can come off as crazy. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. You may just do some crazy shit. But at the end of the day, in order to evolve and grow as a person, in order to experience happiness, in order to be able to manifest the things that you want in your life, you have to learn how to control your emotions, okay? Because you can't just run around life and just pop off and react and respond to everything, okay? Because those are the types of things that are going to impact your life. When you're just randomly responding to shit, you're not in control over how you're reacting or what you're saying in the heat of the moment. I'm telling you, queens, when you have that reaction where you just fly off by the seat of your pants and you just respond however and you just do whatever in the moment, you wind up making really fucked up decisions that really truly impact certain things in your life that could be very important to you, okay? So that's why it's important for you to learn how to control your thoughts, and then, of course, learning how to control your emotions. Also, another benefit of you knowing how to control your emotions is because there are going to be things that you come across in life. It could be professional, it could be personal, it could be relationships, it could be anything that you come across, and you're going to have to know how to respond in a mature way, okay? There's certain relationships that will only flourish if you know how to respond to certain things in a mature way. Again, you cannot control a lot of the things that happen around you. You can't control the way people think. You can't control the way people do things. You can't control the traffic. You can't control most of the shit that goes on around you, but you can control how you respond to it. Let's talk about some of the consequences and the types of things that you manifest in your life if you don't gain control of your feelings and your emotions. I want to explain to you, queens, why I lead into the episode with talking about the consequences and some of the negative things that can happen to you if you let some of these things, the topics that I'm talking about, if you let them continue to move in your life. The reason that I talk about the consequences is because I want you queens to understand how the things that you do, your behaviors, your habits, your thought processes, I want you to understand how those things manifest the shit in your life that you don't want, okay? All Queens Army is going to be focusing a lot in season 3 on manifesting and creating the life that you really do want, okay? And in order to do that, you have to first understand how it is that you're creating some of the shit that you don't want. So that's the first thing. So that's why I lead in with all of the episodes. You'll notice that I lead in with talking about the consequences, but I'm explaining them and I'm educating you so that you are consciously aware of what it is that you could be doing that's generating these reactions that are happening in your experiences, especially if they're things that you don't want. Once you know what it is that you're doing that could potentially be causing the problem in your life, then you'll know what to do to remove that problem. I just wanted to give you queens a very quick explanation as to why I lead in with the consequences. Again, I don't want to lead in with a whole bunch of gloom and doom and make it sad. I'm just trying to educate you so you're aware of why it is that some of the negative things that manifest in your life, some of the negative experiences that you go through, some of the circumstances that happen that you just don't want, it's not ideal, and you're tired of going through it. I want you queens to be aware as to what it is that you could be potentially doing that is bringing that into your life, because once you know what it is that you're doing that could be potentially bringing those problems into your life, you know how to stop it, okay? With that being said, let's talk about some of the consequences of not being able to control your emotions and or your thoughts and your feelings. The first thing I already said was just unhappiness in general. If you are controlled by your emotions and outside influences, shit that you can't control, constantly have you on an emotional roller coaster, you go through a range of emotions from super happy to depressed to feeling content and being frustrated to being angry and yelling. It's like, who wants to feel like that? Who wants to go up and down and have tons of mood swings in a day? I mean, shit, we already have to deal with PMS, ladies. Let's not add to that. Here's another thing. You could experience bouts of sudden irritability. That's one of the ones that I suffer from, is just sudden irritability. Like, just all of a sudden, I'm annoyed as fuck. Emotional outbursts, irrational decision making. That's a huge one, okay? Emotional outbursts is a huge one too. I don't want to minimize any of them. All of them are major issues in your life, right? Emotional outbursts can be a major problem if you're in the wrong place and you just blow up on the wrong person. Irrational decision making, that can really create some long-term negative effects. Again, it depends on the situation that you're in. Wrong place, wrong time. You don't want to make an irrational decision that's going to follow you for years to come and create more problems. Here's another consequence: feeling angry, sad, frustrated, or disappointment and not knowing why. Has anybody ever felt like that? Like, you just are in a mood, you feel some shit and you don't even know why. You can't even identify what it is that's going on with you. You can't even identify what the hell done just pissed you off. There is nothing more annoying than being annoyed and not even being able to put your finger on what the hell has annoyed you. If you've ever gone through that or felt that, it means that you do not have control of your emotions. And the reason I'm laughing is because I'm raising my hand, because that's definitely one that I do too. Here's another one: explosive arguments. Oh man, I know a lot of people who have some really explosive arguments with friends, family, husbands, wives. That's a scary one for me. Another consequence: feeling overwhelmed. I know a lot of us, especially as ladies, we get to a point where we're overwhelmed because there's something going on and our emotional reaction to it, it just feels like the weight of the world. It feels like here's another thing I have to deal with, and it's a little overwhelming. So be careful of that. I just mentioned this one. Here's another one though, but I just mentioned it. Feeling out of control and powerless. If you do not get control of your emotions, you will feel like you have no power. You will feel like your life is out of control, because what's happening is the shit that's going on outside of you, things that you can't control, you have an emotional reaction. It makes you feel some kind of way. If you don't have control of your emotions, you'll always feel like you're out of touch. You'll always feel like you're just super powerless, like you're a victim to the shit that's happening in your life. And if the wrong thing happens, it can fuck up your day. Well, queens, you don't want to be in that situation because you can't control the things that are going to happen. You can't control the things outside of you. So if you're not emotionally stable enough, you can literally fall victim to just random shit happening and it really impacting your mood or how you feel. There goes that emotional roller coaster again. So you have to be careful of that as well. Okay, here's a big one: lack of understanding your feelings and not knowing how to communicate them or process them. Oh, queens, I think that this is the most complex consequence of not being able to control your emotions. Some of us as ladies have these emotions and these feelings and things that are going on, and sometimes they're so complex or they're so deep or we're so afraid to be vulnerable that we don't know how to even communicate what we feel. And that is a scary place to be, because once you lose the ability to explain how you feel, you are now in a place where you cannot communicate effectively. You cannot communicate your needs to get them met. You cannot communicate your boundaries to ensure that people aren't abusing you or taking advantage of you. You cannot communicate what you need from your family, your friends, your children, your spouse. It leaves you in a very vulnerable position. Even though it feels more vulnerable trying to express yourself, it actually leads you in a place where you can potentially be abused inadvertently because you're not expressing yourself. So you have to be very, very careful of that. When you get to a place where you don't know how to even communicate what you feel, or you can't even identify with what you feel and you cannot process it. So if all of the other consequences aren't enough to make you kind of look into yourself and identify if you suffer from the ability to control your emotions, that one in particular should be one that makes you kind of look twice, because that's a very dangerous place to be. Okay, here's the last two: alcohol or drug misuse. A lot of us do this. Sometimes when you're going through something, you just want a damn bottle of wine or two or three. I think if it gets to that point, you really got a problem. But seriously, sometimes we can overindulge. It's not saying that you are a drug addict, and it's not saying that you are an alcoholic. It's just that you are trying to utilize some sort of a substance to cope with your feelings and your emotions. And it doesn't really do anything but numb them for a temporary period of time. The emotions emotions and the feelings and whatever you're going through is still there at the end of it. And then the last one is actually a physical issue. If you are a person who suffers from extreme emotional ups and downs, you are actually susceptible to a stroke. That's another big one for African Americans as well. So you have to be careful of that. So I just wanted to go through some of those things, because a lot of those things that we go through, sometimes we walk around as women especially, and we feel like it's normal. Oh, it's normal to just have highs and lows because we're women and we're emotional creatures. Oh, it's normal to have sudden bouts of irritability. Oh, it's normal to just have feelings of anger and frustration or disappointment and just not know why. Oh, it's normal to have some explosive arguments here or there. I'm not going to say that it's not normal, but may be normal, but it's not healthy. And so that's what it's all about. It's about creating healthy boundaries and evolving so that you can lead a more healthy life. So I wanted to share that with you, queens. And again, if you can relate to any of those previous consequences, if any of those feel familiar to you or sound familiar to you, it may be time for you to just take a moment and do some self-reflection. You guys know I love self-reflection, but you might want to just do some self-reflection and just think about if you are feeling or experiencing any of those things that maybe it's coming from you not being able to control your emotions. Before I go into giving you, queens, some suggestions on how to learn to control your emotions and some ways that you can control your emotions, I want to jump back to what I said in the beginning of the episode, which is controlling your emotions is also about being able to control your thought pattern and your thought process. And the reason that I tie thoughts and emotions in together, and a lot of people don't, a lot of people leave thoughts and emotions separate and independent. In my opinion, thoughts create emotions. So it's the way you think about something. It's what you believe about something that then creates your emotion. So let me give you an example. I shared a story with you, queens, in season 1 about my perspective on love and relationships. And it was a really bad perception, okay? Because I got my heart broken. And so after my heart got broken, I just had a perception about men and a perception about love that it wasn't fair and it was bullshit. And men preferred to deal with women who were going to treat them like shit, and they didn't value the real good, strong women. And that was my perception. That was a thought that came about because of what I had experienced. And the thought turned into a belief, because that's what happens. Everything starts as a thought and then it migrates into a belief. Now, once it turns into a belief, then that belief creates an emotion. And the emotion that it was creating for me was an emotion of anger and bitterness. So I started to feel angry and I started to feel bitter because of what I had experienced, okay? But it all started as a thought. Now, how can you control that thought, especially if it's like, well, if that's what I went through and that was my experience, well, of course, that's going to be how I think about it. Absolutely true. However, I want you, queens, to know and to understand that that is a choice. That is a choice that you're making. It's a choice. It was a choice for me to make that thought become a belief because of what I experienced. Because that wasn't the only relationship that I had been in, and not all of the relationships I've been in had turned out like that. I had that thought and I allowed that thought to become a belief off of one situation that happened. And I think we do that a lot, queens. We can experience 50 people a day and all 50 people can say, hey, how you doing? And the one person who doesn't, then we have a thought of people are so rude. And then the thought becomes a belief. And then when that belief sets in, now you have a feeling and you have an emotion about people speaking. And so then when people speak or don't speak, whatever emotion it is that's created from the belief, it just jumps right up, whatever it is. And then you react. So I want you, queens, to understand that the reason I tie thought into emotion and learning how to control your thought, which really isn't controlling the thought, really what it's controlling is your desire to choose whether you want to believe the thing that you thought is true or whether you want to say, well, that was just one situation. You have that choice. But when you're not aware that that's what you're doing, when you're not aware that the hundreds of thousands of thoughts that cross our mind every day, we only choose some of them to hold on to and to create a belief out of. So the way that you're going to get control over your thoughts is to be consciously aware of what it is that your mind is thinking, and then to make a decision if you want to create a belief behind it or not. You can be logical about it. So for my example, I didn't have to set on the belief that, you know what, men are jerks. I could have said, yeah, I did have a thought that, men are jerks and they don't really value really good, strong women. Yeah, I could see how that could make sense considering this last situation I went through. But I had 2 really good boyfriends before that. So maybe all men aren't like that. See, it's a choice. And I held on to that belief for a very long time. And because I held on to that belief, and that belief created bitterness and it created anger, every time I dated and it got to a point where maybe love was seeping in, the bitterness and the anger showed its ugly face. And I ruined the potential situation because I was reacting off of my emotions. Y'all get it? I was reacting off of an emotion that is created by a belief. That's created by a thought. And I'm telling you, queens, if you try to nip it in the bud as soon as you're aware of the thought developing in your mind, you will fare so much better. So I just wanted to educate you on that really quick. Let's jump into how to control your emotions so that they don't control you. Okay, so the first thing, and this one is actually the opposite, but let me explain. The first thing is be sure that you have not adopted unhealthy ways of controlling your emotions, okay? Unhealthy ways are really just coping mechanisms, and they can be just as harmful as not being in control of your emotions in the first place. So 3 of the biggest, most unhealthy ways of trying to control your emotion are denial, withdrawal, and projection. Now, I talk about all of those things a lot. In previous episodes, I talk about a lot of that stuff, queens, because denial is really bad because it's you trying to pretend that what you feel, you don't really feel it, right? Especially women who, the example I had, you go through a heartbreak or disappointment and you just try to act like you don't care. I'm a savage. And that's a denial of your emotions, and that is very harmful. If you withdraw, which just means you disappear, you stop talking to people, you don't answer the phone, you kind of go into your shell like a turtle, that's unhealthy as well, because then that means that you're not addressing how you feel with the person or the situation that caused the emotion. The third thing is projection, and I talk about projection a lot. Projection is where instead of you acknowledging that your feelings are yours, you push them off on someone else and make someone else the quote unquote bad guy and make someone else feel like it's them doing it when it's really you. All 3 of those things are equally harmful, and a lot of people use those techniques as ways to cope with their emotions, and it's not helping because you're really still not dealing with the emotion at all. So let me explain some of the things that you can do that are healthy and that are helpful, okay? The first thing is understanding that controlling your emotions is a choice. You do have the power and the ability to change how you feel, how and what and when you react, and what you choose to let bother you. You have control. I already explained that. That's the first thing that you want to do, is to acknowledge that you have control. If you've been living life all of these years thinking that you don't have control because that's what you were told, I am here to dispel that myth. It is not true. You can control how you feel. You can control what you think. And if you allow that to become a belief, you can control your emotions. And more importantly, you can control how, when, and if you even react to your emotions. So here's the second thing. Take a step back and pause. When you feel something emotionally charged coming on, or you feel your emotions kind of welling up, just take a step back and pause. Allow yourself to become aware of what you're feeling in that moment. Sometimes that requires some, I know you queens know I'm going to say it, self-reflection. It's a journal moment, okay? It's a moment for you to just take a step back, take a time out, and think. So here's what you want to think about, okay? So once you're aware of what it is that you feel, you want to ask yourself, why do you even feel that way? Why do I feel how I feel? And let's use my example from earlier and kind of incorporate it into this particular scenario, right? So why did I feel like men were just pieces of crap and they didn't want a real woman? Why did I feel that way? Well, I felt that way because I felt like I was a great woman to the man that I was with, and he didn't appreciate it. And instead, he wanted to be with somebody that I felt was less than me. And that's the truth. So that's why I felt that way. Then you can ask yourself another question. Once you're aware of why you felt that way, which I just gave you an explanation of why I felt the way I felt, here's the next step. Determine if you do or do not want to feel that way. You have to determine if the way that you feel is not beneficial to you, it's not benefiting your life in any way. You have to make a decision if this is even beneficial, if this is even worth it. Do I even want to continue to feel this way? Is it helping me or is it hurting me? And if the answer to that question is no, I don't want to feel this way anymore, then here's the next question. Then what's the solution? What do I do about it? If I don't want to feel this way anymore because it's not productive and it's actually hurting me and it's creating more problems in my life, or if I don't want to react to this emotion anymore because it's creating a problem in my life, then what's the solution? What's the other alternative? What can I do instead of reacting that way or feeling that way or getting angry or getting sad or cursing somebody out or punching somebody me in the face. What can I do instead? What's the solution? So again, I'll use myself as the example. I decided that that feeling and that belief no longer served me, because what it was doing was preventing me from being able to develop new relationships with new men, because I was still angry and bitter. Those were the emotions that I would feel every time I thought I saw a characteristic of what I saw in my previous relationship. I had the emotion as if I was going through the same thing again, and I really wasn't. But that's what I was reacting to. I was, again, out of control of my emotions. My emotions were controlling me. And it was creating a problem because I couldn't get past the dating phase in any of the relationships because my emotions were not stable. So I had to ask myself the question, why did I feel that way, which I already identified? Then the second part is, does it benefit me? And the answer was no, it doesn't benefit me. And as a matter of fact, it's hurting me at this point. And then the question was, well, what is the solution? What do I do instead? How should I feel instead of feeling what I was feeling? How should I feel instead? And I really thought about it. And that's when I came to the conclusion and said, well, hell, I had the thought that men were jerks and that they didn't value good women because of this one situation, or maybe two. But I had two other boyfriends who were great. So really what I'm thinking is not necessarily true. Or maybe I just shouldn't think that way anymore. And that's it. That was the solution. I'm just not going to believe that all men are crap. I started observing other people's relationships, friends, family members, even some of my previous relationships. I was looking to prove to myself that not all guys were what I started to believe that they were. And once I was able to do that, then it was easy for me to say, well, you know what I'm thinking and what I'm believing is not really true. So I stopped believing it. It's just like if you believe something and then you learn it's not true. You believe that there was a fucking Santa Claus and now you know it's not true. Now you just change your mind and say, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's not true anymore. It's not that difficult. The solution for me in my scenario was that I just had to acknowledge that it simply wasn't true. The thought that I had that turned into a belief that then started to create my emotions and then create my reaction to the emotion was simply not true. Once I realized that it wasn't true, I was able to just kind of shrug my shoulders and let that belief go. And once I let the thought and the belief go, the emotion went too. I was no longer bitter and I was no longer angry and I no longer reacted to shit. I just had to change my mind. Queens, you're in control. It's your mind for you to believe whatever it is that you choose to believe. We experience over hundreds of thousands of thoughts a day, but there are only some of them that we choose to pick and that we choose to adopt and that we choose to harp over and that we choose to believe. And I want you queens to know that you have control. You're not a victim to it. You can have a thought and just make a decision that, yeah, that's not true. That doesn't make sense. You don't have to adopt it as truth. It could just be a thought. Come and go. So I wanted you queens to know that here are the steps. The first thing is to take a step back and pause and allow yourself to become aware of what it is that you're feeling in the moment. And then once you're aware of what you feel, ask yourself why you feel that way. And again, that may take some self-reflection. That may take some time for you to really sit back and think about it. And then once you have determined why you feel that way, then ask yourself, do you want to feel that way anymore? Is it beneficial to you or is it hurting you to feel that way? And if you decide that you don't want to feel that way and it's not beneficial and it's hurting you, then ask yourself, what is the solution? What do you do instead? Instead of thinking the way you think and instead of believing what you believe that caused the emotions that you're suffering from, what can you think differently? How can you react differently? How can you respond differently? That'll get you the resolution that you're looking for, or that'll get you to experience what it is that you want to experience versus what you're currently experiencing. So this is how you take your control back. You take your control back by asking yourself for the solution, by looking for the solution, by observing the solution. And how do you ask yourself for the solution? You can literally be talking to yourself and ask yourself the solution. You can write it on a piece of paper. You can type it in Google search bar and read some blogs. You can come to the All Queens Army podcast and you can listen to some episodes. At the end of the day, you can email me and ask me the question, and I may be able to give you some suggestions. You can talk to your mom, your sister, whomever you trust. There's so many ways that you can try to figure out how to do something a little bit differently if what you're doing is not getting you the result that you want. You just have to know that there's a different way and that you can do it and you're in control. You're not a victim of it. It's not just happening to you and you're just sitting back crying because, oh shit, this happened. No, you don't have to experience it that way. It's a choice. Here's the last thing. Well, actually, kind of the last thing is once you get to that point, now you can control how you want to react, or if you even want to react to the emotion at all. There's so many times that I don't react to things. Most things I don't react to. Most things that I feel, I don't react to. I don't need to say anything. I don't need to respond. I just don't engage myself in certain things that don't make me feel good. If it makes me feel icky, yucky, negative, whiny, bitchy, complainy, whatever, I don't even engage in because I don't want to mix my energy with that bad energy. That's just me. But you then will have the ability to make a decision on how you want to react or if you want to react at all. And that's when you really know that you have control over your emotions, because now you're choosing your response. You're not just reacting to a response based on how you feel. And then here's the last thing that I always suggest. I suggest this on almost every episode when we start talking about working on ourselves. Journal, queens. Journal. Journaling is so powerful. There's two different types of journals that I do. I do gratitude journals just so that I can stay in a really happy space and focusing on how wonderful my life is and the blessings that I have, so that I'm not focusing on the difficult stuff all the time. So that's one journal. But another journal is a self-discovery and a self-reflection journal. And that journal is a place for you to be able to write down what it is that you're feeling when you're trying to uncover what's going on with you. And I talk about that a lot, pretty much all of the episodes. When I say, hey, do some self-reflection, that's actually what I'm talking about. So with that being said, queens, I hope, as always, that this was a helpful episode for you. I hope that you feel empowered now, that you have control over your emotions, that you have control over your thoughts, that you can choose what you want to believe and what you don't want to believe, and that you can also make a decision. Even if you do believe something that's not beneficial to you anymore, you can make a decision you don't want to believe that shit anymore because you don't like the way it makes you feel, and you don't like the way the things that make you feel icky make you respond. So take your power back today, queens. You deserve it. You deserve the life that you want. You deserve the life that you've always dreamed of. Queens, it's time to manifest all of the wonderful things that you've always been dreaming about. If you want to learn more about that, head over to the website at allqueensarmy.com and try out that e-course, okay? I'm telling you, it is worth it. It's super cool. I put a lot of effort into it. I did a lot of reading and a lot of studying before I created that e-course for you, and I made it just for you, queens, because I promised you that I would. So I hope you enjoy that. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me for anything, you always know that you can email me at breezy@allqueensarmy.com. That is BREIZY at allqueensarmy.com. I love you, queens, so much. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Please go to the website, check out the blog. Let me know what you think. There is a ton of wonderful content on the website. And also remember, we have a new website now. So we're growing and we're continuing to change and make sure that I meet the needs of all of the queens out there. I love you, queens, so much. Have a wonderful Monday, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the All Queens Army podcast. If you want to connect with Breizy Time and the All Queens Army, be sure to follow them on IG and Facebook at All Queens Army. Or head over and check out the All Queens Army YouTube channel. Until next time.